hold a statewide referendum on those two issues, and from there we can make the right decision that works for commerce in Indiana as well as a decision that works for our families.
Mr. Horning.
Actually, it's the federal Constitution that gives government the right to set the standard of weight and measures. And I proposed a long time ago that Congress take that responsibility seriously and take a look at things like SAE metric measures and ISO time. I've been speaking out against daylight saving time for many, many years, and I guess I have to say, told you so. I mean, it didn't solve anything that people thought it was going to solve, and it's created more nightmares. You know, we might as well just make another 15-minute adjustment to keep us all on time. This is nuts. Who are we fooling? Leave our clocks alone. But I think that the solution to this is to allow, you know, the constitutions to do what they're supposed to do and put things in their proper place. We are in the central time zone. The whole state is. The federal guys could see that if they look at a map. And what we should do is just allow them to set the standard of weight and measures for the whole country so that it makes some sense. And then we don't have to worry about this business of daylight saving time, because if you want to do something in a different hour, do it at a different hour, but leave your clock alone. We're not changing the placement of the sun. This is just a lot of silliness. And by the way, Benjamin Franklin was joking when he proposed this.
Mr. Daniels, 2 time zones.
Now, this was a simple commitment. By the way, a position shared by former Governor Kernan, former Governor O'Bannon, former Governor Bayh. It was difficult for business. Every business group agreed. It was an impediment to have really, if you think 2 time zones is tough, how did you like 3? That's what we had, with more than half the state moving back and forth twice a year. I don't find fault with anybody who disagrees about it, but I did think it was important to keep that commitment. And I do believe it is much simpler now that the whole rest of the world, this is a global economy we're in. And I didn't mind the jokes, but I did mind the lost dollars, missed shipments, missed conferences, and all the rest that went hundreds of times a day with people elsewhere not knowing what time is in Indiana this month. The folks here in the Northwest have never had this problem. Everybody knows you're always on Chicago time, you're always an hour behind New York. Much of the rest of the state was constantly ping-ponging back and forth. But honest people can differ about it, and I do understand that. Let me just go back to one thing. Mrs. Thompson misunderstands something pretty badly about cutting property taxes. The money doesn't go to Indianapolis. It stays in the pockets of the property taxpayers of Lake County and elsewhere. That's where I think it belongs, especially in difficult economic times. One of the most important things we could do was leave more money with them. And your preference for taking it away, perhaps in greater amounts, and giving it to government, local or state, I'm sorry, I just disagree.
Ms. Long-Thompson, 45-second rebuttal.
Well, and let me just say that with the tax structure reforms that Governor Daniels has put into place, he has taken resources away from local communities, and that's exactly what I was stating, and that is exactly what's taking place, which is why we see a number of local governments unable to fund programs that are critical to their security in their respective communities. And with regard to the time zone, clearly it's no more clear today what time zone a particular city or town is in because of the mass confusion from the random assignment of time zone to counties. As governor, I'll fix it.
Mr. Horning.
I think we need to look at how this really works in reality. When you've got people bickering over something, it's often a good idea to bring in a referee. That's really, in this case, what the federal government is supposed to do. That's why it's in the federal Constitution for them to assign standards of weights and measures. That's the way it's supposed to work. I don't fault either one of these candidates for, you know, the way they look at this property tax or the daylight saving time issue, because frankly, voters have been the ones who have made the decisions on this. We've been crying in political ears saying, you solve it, you solve it, when we were actually looking at the wrong layer of government. You know, I would insist that this is something we push back to the federal government and say, you guys get this straight, do it correctly, because that's what the Constitution says, and it would work.
Mr. Daniels?
Nothing to add.
Very good. With our 6th question, we'll begin with Mr. Horning. Stephen J. Stalcup is a retiree who lives in Greenwood. He notes that a better educated workforce is the key to the economic future of the state. However, escalating cost of an education at our state universities has put higher education beyond the reach of most middle-income students. How will you address this problem and ensure that access to higher education for all Hoosiers that all Hoosiers is available to all Hoosiers regardless of their funding, and also to ensure that this funding is equal to how we fund our athletic programs at these state schools?
Oh my, that's a good question. You know, if you read the Indiana Constitution, the funding for what they call in the Constitution common schools is very clear, and we're not doing that. Actually, what a common school is also very clear. It was an 1840s Horace Mann idea that we have not been keeping true to. It's supposed to be an equal ladder of opportunity for all kids, no matter what their economic background is. So there shouldn't be rich schools in rich areas and poor schools in poor areas. It should be funded by the state, not the local areas. And because we've gotten this all screwed up, and because we handed it over to a teachers union that is for teachers and not for students, you know, we have gotten ourselves into this pickle where we have dumbed down primary education to the point where a college degree is now what really ought to be a high school education. You know, when you think about how many years a kid spends in college, all of us up here spent a lot of years in college. But you look at people like Bill Gates and the CEOs of a lot of corporations, they bailed out and started doing business and got rich. You know, we got to get ourselves straight on what this is really all about. Are we going to institutionalize our kids in a union shop? Or are we going to start getting serious about education and make sure that it works by the time they get out of high school? This idea that everybody's got to go to college and we have to pay for it is not only dysfunctional, it's nonsense. We have to do a better job at these kids at an earlier age so that when they decide to go to college, it's because they want to be a specialist, they want to be a doctor, they want to be something productive other than a politician, of course. And I think that it's real important to say that, you know, the primary schools are really where the government should be paying its attention.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels, escalating costs of education at our state universities.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, of course, we are paying a lot of attention to that. That's why we raised dramatically the number of kids in full-day kindergarten. That's why the proposals for more dollars in the classrooms now. But the question of college affordability is an excellent one, and Indiana's got a long way to go. This could be what holds us back from the great economic future that every other indicator points to. We have some of the lowest levels of college attainment anywhere in America, and we have to go at it right now. I've proposed that we use the future growth and lottery proceeds to guarantee to every Indiana high school graduate 2 years at Ivy Tech or that equivalent tuition at any other Indiana school. We have to get through to our young people and their parents, frankly, with the point that you will not likely hold a family-supporting job in the economy of the future without some education beyond high school. And we simply have to make sure that dream is born in every Indiana house, and we have to make it a certainty that they can afford college. And hopefully many of them will catch fire and go well beyond that. When the lottery was pitched to Hoosiers initially, ask in any community you visit, people remember that it was supposed to do something for education. I think it's time, at least in part, to redeem that pledge and starting with making the dream of college real and affordable for literally every Indiana student.
Ms. Long-Thompson.
Well, Governor Daniels has been governor for almost 4 years, and during that time period, college education has become less affordable for many Hoosier families, and that's causing problems for young people who want to go on and get a degree, an undergraduate degree, or go on for graduate school. I'm the first in my family to go to college, and I know from my firsthand experience that I have opportunities today that I would never have had I not had that opportunity to use a National Defense Student Loan and a scholarship to go to Valparaiso University and then on to graduate school. Now, Governor Daniels talks about how he wants to privatize the lottery and use some of the proceeds for college education. The reality is he wants to privatize the lottery. And to make it more palatable, he's saying we'll use some of the money for college education. And those of us who remember when the lottery was created, it was never created to fund education in Indiana, except for maybe some special kinds of programs, because it was never considered to be a consistent source of funding. I have a plan that will expand the 21st Century Scholars Program, which I think is an incredible program begun